Anybody have questions? Feel free to ask questions. You've been wanting to ask a question. And the question starts with what, when, where, how, and mostly why. So please.
So for some of the folks in gaming, I feel like Ubisoft has done a pretty good job lately with like Watch Dogs 2 and Assassin's Creed Origins of having people of color as the main characters. I'd like to get some examples from the folks in gaming of games that you like admire or play or just truly love with people of color as the main lead characters.
That's an interesting question. I think for me, I liked the secondary character. I think it was Resident Evil 5. There was the African woman who was the
Sheila.
Yeah, I enjoyed her in that character. For me, I'm a little weird because I like role-playing games. So one of the things I like is I like when I can make the character look like whatever I want. So, you know, one of the things that we fought for in Mass Effect was to make sure that we had, you know, not just brown skin tones, but let's throw in some noses and some lips and some chins and things like that, and to bring that to part. So that's always been really important to me. Travis, you're nodding your head.
I'm just nodding my head because it's funny because you say that, and I work, you know, presently with Ubisoft, the massive team in Sweden on our game. I don't really, you know, when you ask me that question, I don't have a game like that, you know, because there really hasn't been that many, you know, and so I remember talking to one of my mentors, Warren Spector, who used to work at Looking Glass, and he asked me what my favorite game was, and I told him Ultima Underworld, and he said, why? And I said, I remember building my character and selecting the fact that I could make him black, and then when I swung the sword, it was actually a black hand, and that blew my mind in the early 90s. You know, that to me, that was the agency that I had looked for my entire life, and it was cool to be validated in that way. Now, what I thought was funny about Mass Effect in particular is that you could change your Commander Shepard. When you changed your Commander Shepard, it was funny because I remember going over to a friend of mine's place and a few other friends. They're all black, right? And their Commander Shepards were exactly their skin tone, right? So I don't think you should ever discount what that agency means in games, and you never know what someone sort of, you know, their idealized self should look like. So instead of focusing on that, just make sure that they can actually do that.
And just really important from a creator standpoint. Actually, I got to give shout outs to Ubisoft and the Pirate expansion, where the brother was captain of the ship. As I think about it, that's my number one.
Yeah, that one's the history.
But it didn't come to me on the spot. But the thing that I want to add is that so the companies that build character sets with multiple skin tones and faces, that is much more expensive than just building a single character. Right, so just keep that in mind that's not cheap, right? So there is a commitment financially to create that character so that you can be that ultimate Umber character and represent yourself in that game.
Male or female. I have seen certain games that have not had a female protagonist because they didn't want to spend the money to generate all that art, and I think that's a shame because, like I said, it's about agency. You know, people play games for escapism, I find, a lot of times. And, you know, because your job usually sucks, you don't get paid as much as you'd like to. Like your girl, your boyfriend sucks, and, you know, like everything sucks, right? And for a little while, we can make you the center of attention. We can make you save the universe. And that person you should be able to identify with that person. It's worth the money.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, this is a great panel, by the way, really informative. And one of the things you were talking about was mentorship, right? And the idea of like seeking individuals out. But you know, there's a whole thing about labor power and the idea of like, you know, when people are coming together, when you're seeking out individuals, and usually in other trade industries, there's apprenticeships and things like that. So is there, and we're talking about process, so is there particular resources people can go to, like programs like your program, like reaching out to people, but for people who are joining the workforce, that they can go to like go under someone who's writing scripts or go on under, as opposed to just like having to reach out to an individual? Like, are there programs, are there, for like young workers who are trying to get into this industry, like specific kind of places to apply and things?
You know, yes and no. you know, what there are internships, you know, but the problem with internships, especially in the creative fields, is that they pay very little or nothing, you know, and that's difficult. I mean, you're gonna have to get subsidized in order to work some of those jobs. You know, I still have to go back to what I think one of the guys up here was saying, I think it was Ryan, was talking about a mentor, a single cat, you know, or someone who's working in the industry, where you can say, you know, is there a way I can learn from you? I mean, it sounds weird, but that's really the best way because, you know, you have some writing programs, but, you know, the process to get in is prodigious. So I just say, approach someone who you admire, whose opinion you can trust, and just go to them and see if they'll help you out in terms of answering questions. Like even on Facebook, I'm available to anyone who wants to ask me, you know, now, I can't give you a dissertation, but you know, if you're specific, I can give you specific answers, you know.
And most of us will do that because we remember being here, there, you know. And I'm forever grateful for the people who took time out of their busy schedules for a second and told me, hey, you want to make Kings? Well, you should do this. And so we have to pay that forward, especially, you know, not being, you know, white.
Due to the long-winded nature of our panelists answering questions, I'm gonna have to cut the panel off, but they'll be willing to answer questions outside.
Yeah, all right.
So we will have
Birthdays, just answer some questions.
Pick a number.
All right,
Just
let's
pick a
say,
number.
what's,
Just pick a number. And then
there you go, just pick a number from,
who's gonna answer that?
moderator.
We'll go outside and we'll figure out how to get it out there. There you go.